Hello everyone, my name is Love and I am from the marketing team of Great Learning and I'll be your host today. And as you all know, today we are joined by our esteemed alumni, Mr. Arpit Jain. Mr. Arpit is an alumni of the February 2017 batch and he has more than 7 years of work experience and he is currently deployed as senior data scientist with Ericsson. In his 7 years of analytics experience, he has worked across multiple domains such as finance, production, automobile, telecommunications. He has great interest in data science and machine learning and has worked in e-commerce optimization, user experience optimization, and currently he is utilizing his domain knowledge and expertise in data analysis, business intelligence, and data integration at his workplace. His core expertise in data analytics, along with the work domain experience and business understanding, helped him stand out from the crowd and helped him a great deal in his career. Uh, his clarity of thought and his articulation of business problems into data problems is one of his major strengths and which most of the time has acted as an edge over others. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Arpit to our session. Welcome, Arpit.
Thanks, Love.
So, guys, how the session will be structured is as you will all be very curious to know a little bit more about Mr. Arpit. I've already given him, I've already given a brief introduction about him, but I'm sure all of you would like to know a lot more about him, his background, what has he done so far, how did his analytics journey start. So, I'll start off by asking Arpit. Arpit, could you help us a little bit about more about your background? What sort of education you have had, your undergraduation, your PG, if you have done. So, could you just help us through your journey a little bit?
So, I'm a 2013 engineering pass out. To be honest, nothing fancy in my engineering degree, so not an IIT graduate. So, I passed out from a private college in 2013 in electronics and communication. And but fortunately, I was one of the very good students in my college, and I was a silver medalist in my university. So I got placed quite easily in my college. And Wipro Technologies was my first organization. And when I joined my first organization, so I started working with one of the banking clients there. It was based out of London. And initially, I was a database administrator there, junior database administrator, to be honest. And during my course of journey, I realized that it was a very big client for my first company. And eventually, there were a couple of things which are going around in that organization itself in different team. And they were trying to explore something on analytics. But this is the time when in 2015, I realized that there is something which is really good in analytics, and I had my interest there because I knew a couple of my friends who were working in that domain. They were doing some R&D there, so I started learning online. So I started figuring out what exactly it is, and then what should I be doing in there. And I knew that I might not get an opportunity within the same organization to work in analytics domain. So I started looking out for uh, an opportunity outside my current organization, and that's where my analytics journey started. So I was doing two things at the same time. First is applying for a job where I should be looking for something in analytics. Second, in looking for a course where I should be getting a formal education in analytics because I never had such education in the background. So from the job perspective, I got an opportunity from IBM. That was my second organization, where I joined them as a senior analyst towards the analytics field, luckily. And when I was there with IBM, I was also applying for my masters. And at that time, I was pretty much adamant to go to abroad. So I was applying for my masters in US. So within 6 months in IBM, I cracked one of the good universities in US, and I left my job and I went to US for my masters in MS in business analytics in analytics domain to get a formal education. To be honest, my plans was to settle down there in US, never to come back in India. But unfortunately, there was a family emergency, so I had to drop my studies in between. And I came back in India after finishing my first semester. And then again, I was stuck, so I was jobless. I did not have my degree in there. So again, starting from everything from scratch. So two things I started looking out for. First, for the education perspective, I was looking for a course with a similar course content which I started in US, and from there I figured out that Great Lakes is providing me the similar course content which I was having there in US. So that's again a very good thing which I figured out. And it was then the second most important thing about the course was it was a weekend course because I was also planning to join my job because I left my job and I went to US. So from the job perspective, I got an opportunity from Michelin Tires, that is one of the European tire giants you must have heard of. So I joined them as a research data scientist there in 2017 when I came back from US. And from education point of view, I joined Great Lakes because I figured that the course content was almost similar to what I was having there. So I was in the weekdays, I was working in Michelin, and then the weekends, my classes were going on. So I finished my course within an year of time, and then I was there with Michelin for about a year and a half, about 2 years to be honest. And I figured out that after finishing my course, I was standing at somewhere else. I figured out that my understanding of the subject is really good, better than what I was doing earlier. So and there were some company related issues as well. So I started looking for another job, and that's when I got another opportunity from Ericsson India. So I joined Ericsson in 2019 January as a data scientist, and then eventually I was promoted to a senior data scientist within the organization itself. So you can see my journey. Like I have been into finance, then into in IBM I was more into cloud, so it was IBM Cloud, and then I was into automobile production unit, and then in telecommunication, and eventually you can see that I have seen data from different domains of data science. That's what I have understood, different data sets and different kind of issues which could have happened, which one can see in the industry. So like the real problems, right? So about the experience, I have close to around 8 years of experience, where I can proudly say that I have around 5+ years in analytics. And I've been working into different sectors and different sets of problem. Like I have dealt data in a big data fashion, to be honest. And when you see the telecommunication industry, the data is pretty huge. And when there's a pretty much misconception that people try to call even 10 GB of data as a big data, but that's not actually a big data. A big data is it's humongous. Like you can see like hundreds of GBs of data. That's what big data is. And the computation is really tricky there. You cannot work your simple pandas, NumPy. It won't work. It'll crash. So you have to work on Spark, and then some big data architecture, Hive, Hadoop comes into picture. So yeah, so there's other complexities involved. So I've seen those things around, and then that's how I've been flourishing. So right now I'm in Ericsson, working there in different use cases altogether. That's about me, love.
So great to hear about your journey. So, Arpit, you said that you came back and pursued your education once again in India in analytics, and found the Great Learnings program. So, just going and would like to understand about what was the overall experience like for you in that program. You said that it was very similar to what you were already trying to pursue in US. So, how did the experience of the program that you pursued in India pan out for you? What did you like about it? What did you really enjoyed about that program?
There were many good things. So if I start listing down them, we need to understand why I joined this course. So I certainly believe that if someone is joining the course, they should have a clear mindset that what is their objective. So my objective was to learn because I was somewhere closer to analytics field. I was doing the similar kind of job somewhere around, but I was looking for a formal degree or to learn the concepts because I was doing something which I thought at that time that I might know it very clearly. So my objective was to learn, and I was pretty happy with the faculty at that time because I knew I googled about those faculty members, and then I tried to find out what is the course trends and what is the course content as well, which I'll be going through in my course curriculum. So during the course, I figured out there are a couple of things which are pretty good. First is my peer network. So I certainly believe that it's not about your own learning. I certainly believe that you benefit a lot from your peers as well. So I was part of the offline batch, and the kind of pure learning I was going through, it was really amazing because I had a very diverse, I would say, experience in my classroom. So one of my, I still remember that one of the classmates was the vice president of PwC. So he was my classmate, and I'm still in touch with him, and he's very wonderful guy. And this is the kind of network I was able to build in my course curriculum, which I felt was outstanding. The second, from the knowledge perspective, from the course content delivery. So there were assignments, and assignments were also classified in three different types, like MCQs and short assignments and the long assignments. Long assignments are basically the team assignments. Certainly, again, where the peer learning comes into place. So it's all about giving you a data set and then five or six odd questions that where you have to crunch the data and then figure out the right answers. So that's again, giving the practical aspect of how the real problem should look like, and that involves pure bit of coding because again, coding is one of the key aspects here. So that again, that the pace of delivery, the mode of delivery, and the pure learning. That's what I believe was the standing out features for me for the course, and that has
Hmm.
helped me a lot in my career.
Hmm. All right. So also, the one part of the course is about projects. So there is a capstone project, right? And then there are multiple other smaller projects. So what was your experience like with those projects? What was your project? What did you do as your final capstone project? And what did it help you learn?
Absolutely. So again, very good question. The subject wise assignments were different. So like I had around 8 to 10 subjects. In each of those subjects, I had different assignments. So it was related to my topic which I was going through in the classroom. So apart from that, at the end we had a capstone project. So that was one of the live project which we were supposed to do. In this, everything was supposed to be done by us. Like the major problem which we generally face in the industry is data collection, right? But in academic experience you might not feel that as a trouble, but when once you actually enter any organization, there's again a bigger challenge of collecting the data. So the capstone project was actually giving you that sense how exactly the real problem works in the industry. So it started from your collecting the data, and even before that, the problem definition itself. So we had to define a problem by ourselves, and then it could be based on our mutual interest and the help of the Great Lakes alumni features, and then your faculty members as well. Plus, once the problem statement has been identified, you have to actually gather the data. So that's again very tricky thing. And once you have gathered the data, you have to clean the data. So that's again a major super tricky thing. You have to clean the data according to your problem statement. And then the definition of a problem, you have to solve it accordingly. So my capstone was I had a sheer interest in cricket. So I was working on an IPL problem statement. So at that time, we tried to predict top five players in the next IPL season based on the past historical trend of 8 IPL season which happened at that time. So we were
Hmm.
trying to predict who could be the top five players on each franchisee and top bottom five players based on their performance, and then a lot of other sentiments also which we took into place. So that was our use case which we built on.
Arpit, another thing that you mentioned was that you have worked with multiple organizations.
Yes.
In terms of your interview experiences, how has the program helped you prepare for that? There were the mentorship sessions useful in terms of preparing for the interviews, possible interview questions? Did the course material help you prepare for possible questions that could come up?
Absolutely. So again, there were a lot of very informative sessions which happened at our time. First is like the industry sessions, which also covered our resume building sessions. So something which I helped, like my resume was actually not appropriate, which I felt was not actually relevant to a particular data science profile. So I got benefited with the resume building session which happened internally. And then post that, we had couple of discussions on the interview sessions as well before the mock interviews, and then also on how exactly you can expect such questions in the industry. So yes, definitely. So those helped me to get a broader idea of what I should be expecting in the real interview. So definitely that has helped a lot.
Brilliant question from Swamedeep. Swamedeep asking, is formal degree mandatory to get a job in this field? And another very common question that is there. So let's say someone who is not from programming background, someone who has not worked in an IT kind of a profile. For example, some of the people would be working in digital marketing. So how do they go about learning these skills, the data and analytics skills, and how would the program fit into their requirements? And in our batch, in the analytics program attended, the February 2017 batch, there are people from non-programming background, non-IT backgrounds who were there and did extremely well after the course or during the course.
I'm going to take the first question, Love, which you asked about
Yeah.
is a formal degree mandatory to get a job, right? So again, let me tell you very frankly here. So there are 4 major skill sets which are actually mandatory for your job. Okay, so I'm not talking about a degree here. I'm just talking about the skill sets. So those are your ML techniques, your stats, your Python, and the last is your SQL. Okay, so these 4 are mandatory skill sets which you need to have to get a job. Okay, because when you go for an interview, right, so you'll be grilled on these four topics, because at the end of the day, your day in and day out job will be revolving around these skill sets only. It is definitely not at all mandatory to have a formal degree to get a job, but yes, it will make your path easier, right? So if you have a formal degree, it gives you a platform, it gives you a visibility to be noticed by the recruiter and the organization respectively. But again, if you don't have a formal degree, it does not mean that you cannot get a job. Again, you have this, if you have the right skill sets to get a job, you'll still get it. But again, you might reduce on the probability of getting a job, because you might not be getting the same visibility after once you do a formal degree, because it adds on onto your resume, right? So, but again, this, it is not mandatory. I will never recommend to have a, it's a mandatory thing to get a job. It gives you a platform, and it becomes it, it actually creates a life easy, and it'll it helps you to get a better opportunity once you have a degree. That's about it, but it's nothing mandatory.
Okay. Uh, Great. So, about the second part of the question, is uh, being from a non-programming background, a non-IT background, a real hindrance in transitioning to a data science role or learning these skills specifically? So, let's say somebody is working in sales and marketing or in operations. So, how difficult or easy it would be for them to learn all the skills that you just mentioned?
That is very subjective. But if you ask me that, if you're from sales and if you can join the field, yes, you can. If you have the interest to learn the concepts, the techniques, which is part of my analytics field, like ML, Stats, Python, and SQL. If you can learn this, if you can master this, why not? You can definitely. You're more than welcome to work here. But again, if you say that you can learn this thing, that is very subjective, right? Because Python, right? When I say Python, someone might be really good in Python, someone might not be very good, or someone is really struggling in Python, right? So there are three different categories of people. But again, you have to realize that whatever analytics you'll be doing, right, you need to work on some platform, and the platform has to be some of the coding field, right? Like it could be R, it could be Python, it could be SAS, SPSS, anything. So you have to pick any of these platform to start working. Where you will start working, you cannot be working theoretically, right? So at the end
Hmm.
of the day, you have to work somewhere. You have to write the code. This is how you'll be doing the work, right? So you cannot just skip away from Python. And the I mean, I would say the better you are in Python, easier your job will be. So that's it. Again, if you're struggling in Python, your job will be difficult, because it's not about getting a job. Also, surviving, it's gonna be a task for you, right? You have to do the day-to-day job there, and for that you have to code. And without coding, you cannot do anything. I mean, it's not about theoretical aspect, right? You have to do things. What was more about practical application. So Python becomes important here, and not. I mean, say Python. I'm saying Python regularly here because Python is one of the very frequently used platform, and now in these days, more of the companies are switching towards Python. Even from the R, they are trying to move towards Python because it's more of a commonly available, I would say, a tool or a platform where the person are more comfortable in, and most of the deployments are also happening in Python. It's very friendly language. So yes, so Python becomes important, but again, learning part, it's totally subjective. If you can master it, then you're definitely more than welcome to work here.
All right. So, in your batch, while you were pursuing the course with Great Learning, uh, did you see people from non-programming background also being present in the batch?
Absolutely, yes. So there were one of my teammates in my capstone was a HR person, and you
Okay.
can assume that HR person are totally not, be it not only coding, so they are non-technical itself, right? So
Hmm.
they don't even belong from the IT industry. So they are from the HR people who are purely into people, I would say, management kind of stuff. So yes, I in my batch, I cannot give you the exact numbers, but yes, one of my team members in my capstone project was from HR, and he was very confident that he wanted to work in this domain, and he had around 15 years of experience in HR industry itself, and he was able to crack what exactly the concepts are, and then he made himself comfortable in Python. And right at the and I mean, at this point of time, he is actually working as a senior data scientist. I
Wow.
know him very well.
Great. So, Somedeep and others who are thinking whether their non-programming background would be a hindrance, this is a great inspirational story for you all to listen to. Somebody who has had such a great amount of work experience, especially in a non-technical domain, not even just programming, but a non-technical domain, transitioning to a senior data scientist role. So, yeah. So I hope that answers a lot of queries that people would have had. We have a question from Sonali. Sonali has had a career of 10 years and is currently looking to join MSc in Data Science and Computational Intelligence to support her. She has done a short private course of data science with Python. Her question is how challenging it will be to enter back into the workforce in the data science field, and how can she prepare or choose a specific course to improve herself so that it can help her get the desired job.
I am unsure if I got the question. Can you just repeat this question again, love? I think I
Sure.
lost it.
Sure. Sonali has had a career break. She has taken a career break, and she is currently pursuing an MSc in Data Science and Computational Intelligence. So her question is, how can she best prepare herself to enter back into the workforce, and especially in the data science field?
I'm assuming that before going on a break, she was not from an analytics domain. So
Hmm.
again, she's trying to get back into the work and that too into analytics domain, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
again, if you have a very valid reason for that why you took a break, it's always acceptable in any organization. I mean, it's unethical to accept that, right? And again, you need to understand that it's not about your break; it's about how you're gonna crack the interview, right? And again, the recruitment process is basically of two phases: getting the call and then clearing the call, right? So you have to excel in both of those phases. First, for the getting the call, you have to work on your resume because nobody knows you personally, right? So there has to be something in resume which is making you eligible for the call, correct? So you have to work on your resume first, make your resume appropriate for a data science profile. Second, and then once you're getting the call, you should be knowing what kind of questions you should be preparing for. As I was explaining earlier, four skill sets gonna be your key: your stats, ML, Python, and SQL. If you can master in these all four areas, and trust me, these all go hand in hand. If you're good in concepts, but you cannot implement it in Python, you're still not good for me. And other way around is also true. If you're very good in Python, if you don't know the concepts, you're still not good for me. Correct? So you have to be good in both of these areas, your concepts plus your practical application. They both go hand in hand. So if you can master of all of these areas, definitely, why can't you get a job? It's not about your break. I mean, break is always acceptable if there is a valid reason behind it, right? And then your technical aspects, if you can really crack the interview.
We have a question from Kalandar. Kalandar is asking that how long would data science be relevant? Like, it has recently caught on quite a bit. Is this just a passing trend, or is this something that is going to stay here? That is going to stay here for the future as well?
That's a very tricky question, and I certainly believe that. See, the why that we need to understand first why data science is booming these days, right? So because the thing is, the data was always available. It was not like data has started becoming available these days only. No, data was always available, but the kind of platform or the technologies to work on those data was not available, and that has evolved in past 4 or 5 years, and that is how your data science field is also coming into picture, right? So now the thing is, data science field itself is very much evolving, and there are very bright chances that the companies themselves might not know the use case which they want to work on. I mean, many companies are still exploring what kind of use cases they want to work on, what could be the potential benefit out of it, right? So yes, at least for next 5 years, I can definitely say that this is going to be a very good field to work on. But again, with the same skill sets like Python, Stats, ML, you cannot stick there in the industry. You have to make yourselves available for the upcoming trends as well. For example, I'll tell you, I was working on R 3 years before. I was I was adamant that I won't be switching to Python. To be honest, I was always working on R, and I was very confident in R. But later, I realized that if I don't move on to Python, because my company started moving to Python itself, and I was actually forced to move on Python. If I
Hmm.
was really stuck, if I were adamant at that time, I wouldn't have evolved, right? So it's like you are going with the trend. So now I started working in Python, but again, Python might not be the good coding language 3 or 4 years after. Nobody knows that, right? So I mean, Google is also picking up some other coding language, right? So you have to go with the trend. But again, the whole domain will stick there. I mean, the data science will be there. There might be few evolved, updated technologies which might come in the data science itself, right? For the big data, for the coding platform, maybe some advanced, algorithms on machine learning itself. Like for example, you must have heard for the deep learning, there are many new advanced algorithms coming up, like NSTM and the autoencoders. They're very good, very beautiful concepts which are coming up, right? So these things will be evolving with the time, but again, the domain will stay. It's just like you have to evolve with the time and upgrade your skill sets,
Hmm.
right? So that's gonna be there.
Lovely to hear that. So, since you have worked both in R and Python, so somebody who is just starting out in this field, what would be your advice? As in, what platform should they start working with? Should they start with R? Should they start with Python? Because these are the two top platforms that everyone hears about. That, oh, you should learn R, or you should learn Python. Python is the future, yeah, and all that. So, as a person who has experience of both, what would be your advice for somebody who is looking to start learning these things? Which platform should they choose, R or Python?
I will always recommend Python. I have the reason for that because I am a person who always goes with the trend, right? And the trend is for Python. And the companies are actually moving towards Python because the integration of Python is very easier compared to R. And again, you have to realize that you're not building, I mean, you're not building any predictive model to keep on your own laptop, right? Again, you're building it for the business. You have to get it deployed to the system, right? And that deployment is actually comparatively very easier in Python. The models and every other aspect is comparatively easier, right? So that is actually helping Python more, and the companies also are also realizing that, and that is the reason why they are moving towards Python. That is the future for sure. But again, if you're starting your journey, I mean, that will always be a good thing to start to go with the flow, right? To what the current trend is, and the current trend is for Python. You should be going for Python, not for R. But again, there might be few companies, maybe like 10 out of 100 companies who are still working on R. Then again, it is depending on the need. But again, if you take overall general trend, then you should be going for Python, not for R.
Next, we have a question from RD. RD is asking, where will this course be taught? RD, this course will be taught currently in the online format. We did have an offline version as well, and Arpit is an alumni of the offline batches. But currently, as you are already aware, because of the pandemic and everything, offline classes are not exactly feasible. So at the moment, or most of our all of our courses are being taught online, and they are being taught in a similar format. So all of these are weekend courses, mostly weekend courses, except for the data science and engineering course, which is a weekday course. So the data science and business analytics course is a weekend course that happens on the Saturdays and Sundays, and it's an 11-month course. Then there are other courses as well, which you can check out on our website, greatlearning.in. We have a lot of questions from people who are asking that I have done a master's in economics. Would I be able to pursue a career in data science? I've done mechanical engineering. Would I be able to pursue data science? So I think we did sort of cover this in our in one of the questions, whether being from a technical or an IT background is somewhat necessary. But still, Arpit, in your jobs, in all the profiles that you have worked in, uh, have you come across people who have had non-engineering degrees as well? So somebody who has done master in economics, for example, or somebody who is a CA or something like that. So is it something that you have seen very frequently in the roles that you have worked in, and or probably in the client side that you have seen?
Okay, I'll again give you my company's example itself. So one of my team members, when he's not part of my team right now. So earlier, one of my team members was having a BCom degree, and he did some online course on data science, not specifically into machine learning, and he was working as a data engineer in my team itself, right? So again, so that's again a very beautiful example to illustrate that. So the degree does not really matter here. It just matter like how exactly you can cater the requirement, and the requirement is for the data science would be again revolving around those four skill sets only.
Hmm.
If you can master those four skill sets, degree definitely, I would say, it does matter in a way that it'll get you. I mean, it'll give you a platform to get a interview call. So that is the only reason it is important. But again, if you say that if that is mandatory to have a technical degree to have to get a job in data science, no, it is not mandatory. Again, yes, you'll reduce the probability of getting the call, you'll reduce the probability of getting inside the organization itself. But again, it's not, I would say, impossible. It'll become a little tricky, but again, it's not impossible. You can still get it.
So another question we have is from Anand. Anand is asking, how will we differentiate between what is an artificial intelligence profile, a machine learning profile, and a data scientist profile? What is the defining feature of each of these?
First of all, I'll tell you, the companies themselves are a little confused on the designation itself. So these designations are not very well structured. So in some cases, you might be working as an analyst, but you still be developing a machine learning model, right? So there are a lot of different scenarios when the job description and a designation does not really tally. But I'll tell you how exactly the different job structures are, right? So there are basically three types of jobs available in analytics. First is your analyst role. Second is your data scientist role. Third is a data engineering role. Okay. Your designations might vary from company to company. For example, for analyst, the analyst could be called as a BI consultant or a business analyst or a data analyst or a simple analyst, right? So the designations might vary from company to company. Again, for a data scientist, they could be called as a machine learning professional or a data scientist themselves. And again, for the data engineer, machine learning engineer, they could be called as a machine learning engineer, right? So there are a lot of different things which is there. I mean, from a designation perspective, these are not very truly defined. But again, I'll tell you, when you say data scientist, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, so I mean, they are still one of the same thing itself, because artificial intelligence is the advanced part of machine learning only, right? It's because artificial learning is working on the data itself. It's like a different form of data. You might be working on text there, you might be working on images there, you might be working on video, songs, audio, right? As again, it's form of a data. So machine learning is also data with a traditional format. So your artificial intelligence is like advanced form of machine learning where you're working on different formats of unstructured data, right? So don't club it as a different domain itself. So every company might be working on different types of use cases. For example, if the company A is working on, say, text related problems, so they will be looking for a person who are good in NLP, right? And if the company B is working on, say, image classification type of a problem, right? So they'll be looking for a person who's really good in CNN, RNN, or image classification type of a use cases. And the company C who's working on the traditional regression type of a problem. So they'll be looking for a person who's good in good machine learning techniques, right? So again, depending on the organization need. So don't classify it as a different domain itself. Rather, it's one of the sub types of your problem statements which a data scientist will be doing, right? So it all falls under the data scientist umbrella itself, depending on the company's requirement, what kind of use cases they are dealing with, basically.
Speaking of different requirements by the companies, one of the frequent requirements that companies present is having experience in analytics field. So somebody who is probably not working in that particular domain. For example, the HR person that we spoke about earlier. So he was working in his own HR domain, right? Uh, so when these kind of professionals learn these concepts, the skills they learn, they often find themselves confused that I do not have experience to show. As in, the companies are asking for 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience, or X amount of years of experience. So, how do I manage this particular challenge? That how do I present myself as somebody who is well versed with all these skills?
That's again a very good question. So you have to again understand it in a more broad way. Okay. So first, you need to understand that when you spend some time in any industry, you mature yourself, correct? So it's not always about the technical skills, which is actually making you eligible for the senior roles. It's also about your interpersonal skills, correct? So yeah, the way how you present yourself, the way how you deal in that stress situation, how you show your leadership qualities, how you handle multiple clients, right? So there are a lot of other things also which helps in your overall portfolio when you spend your time in the industry, right? And again, you need to understand that you are anyway having 1 year of academic experience in data science, because in Great Lakes, you'll be getting an opportunity to work in different domains of data science. That's like you'll be solving problems in regression, classification, clustering, NLP, deep learning, all of these areas, right? You'll be giving the assignments in all of these areas. So practically speaking, you still have an experience of 1 year in academics. Definitely. I mean, again, if you go back and try to understand your work experience, you cannot change it, right? You have to accept that you cannot change it. So you have to be what it is. You have to just let it be. You cannot just fake your profile. It's not ethical. You cannot do that, right? So you have to accept where you are, and from there you need to understand that you have 1 year of academic experience where you have seen different data science problems, plus whatever X amount of experience you have in the industry, we can count it as your sophisticated skill sets development. You can highlight it as one of your leadership qualities. You can highlight your communication skills. You can highlight your stress management skills, your client management skills, a lot of things which you learn in the industry, right? So along with your technical skills, which is coming from your Great Lakes, it's gonna be your industry experience, which is coming from your overall work experience, where you have developed your soft skills. The combination of these two gonna make you an ideal fit for the organization. So that's how you have to present yourself.
Hmm. And would the projects that the course has, the capstone project, like you did for IPL, all these things, is that something that would help in terms of showing that you have the capability to work with the data and demonstrate that you have the skills?
Absolutely. So you have to write those projects in your resume also, because when you will be preparing your resume for your data science profile, anyway, you have to highlight some of your work which you have done, right? It's not always about talking something on skill sets, rather to showcasing of what kind of problems you have solved. So you have to write those projects in your resume as well. That's the most appropriate way of showcasing that yes, you have solved these different types of problem statements. So whenever you'll be writing your problem statements, right? So you have to make sure that you're choosing different domains of problem. Like, you can choose one project from regression, one from classification, one from deep learning, and need not be a capstone project. Again, I will not, say that you are supposed to do it on a very first project. But again, in capstone project, your visibility is very high because you'll be solving everything from scratch. It's always good to have that project because that is where you must have seen different aspects of problem statements in the real data set, correct? So again, from the resume perspective, yes, whenever you have to present your overall profile for the companies, then yes, you are expected to write your skill sets in terms of your projects which you have solved in Great Lakes. So
Hmm.
that is the best way to demonstrate that.
Hmm. Okay. Speaking of again getting hired in different profiles, Vikas is saying that he has a degree in IT and he is nearly 40 years of age, but doesn't have any experience as such. So uh, would companies consider him as a good candidate if he has the skills required in data science?
When you say that he doesn't have an experience, so I mean he was in business
Yeah,
and he's trying to move into IT, is it a
I
job?
I think what he means is that he doesn't have experience specifically in data science jobs.
Again, the same point of view, right? So age is just a number here, right? So I understand that the more number of years of experience you have, the number of jobs actually become very lesser. The opportunities are even lesser. And again, if you're trying to make a switch, that makes things even trickier, right? So see, I'll be very honest of how you should be looking out for a job. See, there are two types of things which you can do. First is looking for a data science job within your organization. Second is going out and searching in the market, right? So both of these scenarios have its own respective pros and cons. First, if you're looking for a job within your organization in the data science domain, so that's actually very, very good to start your career because the best pro here is that your chances of getting into the job is drastically higher compared to when you go outside, correct? The major con here is that you might not get a salary jump because the company will be giving you an additional thing which you might not be good at, correct? So they might not give you a salary jump. The major con here. But again, you should be looking at this as an opportunity because yes, I agree that the other companies, when you go out, they demand a relevant work experience. So I mean, from the company's perspective, that's also not bad. That's also not wrong, I would say, right? So, but again, it depends on each company or whether they are still happy to take you in even if you don't have a relevant work experience. That is little again subjective to organization. I mean, you cannot really say that okay, the company has to take me in, correct? So if you look for a job within the same organization where you are, you have the brighter chances of getting into the data science domain. Once you have the experience of couple of years, then you can always have you have a relevant work experience as well. Then you should be looking out for a job. It will become very easier to switch at that time. But again, if you start looking out for a job in the other organization from the day one, the major con here is that the chances of you getting into that job will become a little trickier. I will never say that it's impossible. Yes, comparatively it's become a little trickier. But again, if you have the courage and if you have the right skill sets with you can still crack it. People are cracking it, right? But again, the major pro here is that you'll get a salary jump, right? So you have to take very decisive call here. What is more priority for you? For me, I will always recommend to start your career because starting your career in analytics itself is a big thing, right? And if you're getting a job within your same organization, you should be looking for that. You should be taking that.
Okay. Next, we have a question from Anand. Anand is asking, are GitHub or Kaggle platform ratings considered while in the selection process or the interview?
It does. So definitely, and again, it is very subjective to organization also whether the company, the recruiters themselves are going to your GitHub profile and checking the actual codes. It is very subjective. right? But again, see, I'll tell you why Kaggle is important. Why Kaggle and GitHub is important. So they are important to check your coding standards. They are actually to demonstrate that whether you can actually code or not, right? And the way you're writing it, that actually demonstrates your coding, kind of skill sets and your thought process on how to code, basically, right? And that is why it is important. So the other alternative is they might even give you a 1 hour of Python test straight away, right? So they can give you that, and then from there also they'll be able to judge you how good are you in coding, right? So it is subjective to organization. If they are willing, they can go to your GitHub profile straight away, and they can check what kind of coding standards you are. But again, there are there are again certain gray areas here. There might be chances that you might have copied the code from somewhere else, and you could have uploaded it there, right? So they cannot verify those codes. So the companies generally prefer to take standalone Python test itself to cover that. But again, having been said that, it does not mean that GitHub and Kaggle are not important. This is actually very good thing to showcase your kind of work and your coding skill sets.
Thank you, Kalandar, for visiting our YouTube channel and seeing our videos. Good to see that you like them. Okay, so we have a question from Gaurav, and I think that is probably a relevant question for a lot of people. So somebody who is just starting out his career and would like to pursue a data science and analytics field, what is your advice in terms of the steps that they should take? It's like step 1, 2, 3 that they should take in order to build a career path for themselves.
Fresh out of college?
Fresh out of college, yeah. So we can probably include people who have less than 3 years of work experience as well.
Okay. So for them, I would say Python should be your way to go. Okay. So master yourself in Python. So your first step should be to learn Python. And then for Python, you can take any course online available. There are many courses available, right? So try to master yourself in Python. So that is something which is going to be very, very important, right? Because most of the days, what happens is people are very good conceptually, right? They know how exactly each algorithm is working. They know all the concepts of stats. But again, when it comes to your Python implementation, they are very bad, right? So everything goes hand in hand. But when you're fresh out of college or less than 2 3 years of experience, you still have that energy in you, right? So try to invest that energy in the right direction. That is learning the coding part of it, right? So you master yourself in Python. That should be your first step immediately after whenever you're looking for to join this course. Master your Python. If you're good in Python, then start learning your concepts. Like because you'll be already knowing how to implement it. And when you know when you start learning the concepts, at the same time, parallelly, you can also implement it as well on your Python, right? So that's going to be a very good understanding of what you're learning. So step 1 should be learning Python. Step 2 should be learning the concepts. Step 3 should be applying the concepts. So applying will be like taking a random use case. For example, you always have the option to go to Kaggle. You always have the problem statements, data already available on Kaggle. You have plenty of those problem statements, right? So once you're good in Python, once you're good in concepts, take out the data from Kaggle, and give yourself a challenge of say 72 hours, right? So you have deadline of 3 days. Try to solve the problem which is there on Kaggle on your own, right? You have the concepts, you have the Python on you, right? So Python with you, you can start solving it. So that's going to be your step 1 2 3.
So we have a question from Dheeraj. Dheeraj is saying that he's currently working with TCS on a bank project using MySQL and DBMS. And he's currently planning to enter data science. And he would like to know what is the advantage that the course from Great Learning had, and in terms of pure learning experience, what was it like? Was it a good experience for you?
So yes, my core objective itself to join the course was to learn, right? And I saw the course structure; it was very well defined. It started from scratch, right? So even though you're not anywhere related to this domain, you can still take it up. So the delivery of the course content is also very beautifully structured. They always start with the very basic concepts, like the pure stats, right? They will not directly jump to the machine learning, because machine learning has a base in stats always, right? So the core structure delivery will be starting from stats. Once you're good in stats, they'll move to advanced stats. So that's again hand to hand. Once you're good in advanced stats, they'll start introducing your data science concepts. Like first is your EDA. So the first subject will be data mining and data mining. Right, in the data mining, all the EDA steps, like what you generally perform, all your concepts, the application of a concept will be taught. And then once you're good with this, then they will jump to machine learning, right? And then machine learning, after machine learning will be advanced part of machine learning, which is artificial intelligence. Few concepts on neural networks, backpropagation, all of that, right? So you can see the structure. So they'll always start from a very basic. So even though you're not related, it does not really matter that you need to do a pre-study before joining the course. Always good to know Python, because at the end of the day, it's not a Python course. It's more of a data science course, right? You should be, I mean, the expectation is to that you should be knowing the basics of Python so that you can implement the course. That's it, right? So no pre-study required here. It's more like you need to be attentive in the classroom, and they'll take you from the very basic, from the day one. They'll not jump you to the more advanced topics. They'll take you with step-by-step learning. Like very first thing on the day one will be like a very basic thing, and then eventually they'll start building on top of it. So that's also going to help you.
Okay, so the steps that we talked about earlier, like step 1, 2, 3, all of those are covered within the course.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. We have a question from Shamadeep and Shaurya. I'll pick Shaurya's question first. Is there any need to learn C, C++, or any of those languages after learning Python for data science?
I don't see a direct relevancy here in C, C++ anyway. But again, let me tell you the other aspect of data science. So once you have developed the model, in developing the model, you might not need it. Once you develop the model, you have to get it deployed. So that again, when the deployment comes into picture, there's a whole lot of infra there, right? So that infra could be based on your Java, and that infra could be anything, right? So it's more of a DevOps task. So you have to get the whole system running. So there, in that case, your data scientists are not the only required person. Your data engineers comes into picture, right? So data engineers are the people who are taking care of the infra, like the DevOps guy of data science, right? So yes, there in that case, it would be required because it is dependent on what kind of architecture your company is following, your company is based on. So in that case, it would be required. But for the data scientist role, it is not required, not mandatory.
So next we have a question from Saf. Saf is asking, how do you see data science evolving as a tool for drug discovery in healthcare and those kind of applications? How do you see data science contributing?
Absolutely. So that's again a particular industry-specific question, right? So I'm not sure if you've heard of there's something called as survival analysis, right? So survival analysis is one of the very key aspect in any healthcare domain. So right, so people are trying to answer not only why but also when. So that when aspect is very important in healthcare domain, right? Suppose if you have a cancer, and then if you don't know when exactly you'll be dying, right? So to answer that when part is where the survival analysis comes into picture, right? So yes, so in the data science domain, if you consider in the healthcare part, it's pretty much evolving depending on what kind of use cases again the companies are trying to solve. For example, in vaccine development, you must have seen, right? So again, there is a high probability of projections of what exactly the demand would be, right? And what could be the potential death rates and efficacy of your vaccine. So there are a lot of multiple use cases which you can build upon. And then again, these use cases might not be defined itself when you actually join the organization. There might be cases that when you actually join, after joining the organization, you might be seeing that okay, there's a potential in this. So you can propose yourself a POC to your management, and then that can also can approve. I have done that, right? So it's very very true. So even the companies might not be very much aware of what kind of problem statements they can actually solve with the data science, right? The companies itself are evolving, and in respective to all the different domains, there are a lot of different potential use cases which can be still applied on. So it's still very much evolving.
So next we have a question from Samadeep. Samadeep is asking that learning Python is a never-ending journey. Is up to OOPS concept good enough? Good enough, including libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, or would advanced level framework knowledge is required to start a career in data science?
That's a very good question. I would say that you have to be smart in coding, right? So in data science, the expectation of coding is bit different. So you're not expected to be a developer. So right. So we are not expected to be very good in coding as a developer as developers are. But again, at the same time, we have to be smart in our coding so that we can get our job done. Okay. So the best way to judge whether you're up to that mark is like if you know HackerRank, right? So if you are working on HackerRank, go to HackerRank. If you're good in Python, try to solve the questions which are there on HackerRank. If you can solve those questions, you are good to go. Yeah, that should be your benchmark. You should be able to solve the questions on HackerRank. If you're good to solve that, then you should start applying for jobs.
Great. So I hope this answers your question. Although I would just like to add that in my personal opinion, learning is a never-ending journey, and I'm sure Arpit would agree here.
Absolutely,
Data
absolutely.
science, as we already discussed, that it's a continuously evolving field. Today,
Yes.
it is Python that is ruling the roost. Tomorrow, it could be some other platform that comes up. And like Arpit was mentioning, that Google is also developing a language for data science. So your learning will never stop. So just thinking that if you are familiar with Python up to a certain degree, that would suffice for you for your entire life. I think that would be a little false statement to be
Yes.
on. So your learning should never stop. That's the core that I was trying to convey. So moving on, we have a question from Kadir. Kadir is asking in the industry for programming, do we use Jupyter or do we use Colab? And what would be your suggestion?
So again, it is very subjective to each organization, right? So what kind of platform or what kind of freedom you are within that organization, and what kind of tool they are using, right? So many companies have their own respective restrictions. Uh, but whatever I have seen in my experience, so the companies are pretty much open for any tool to be used or any IDE to be used to develop your codes. Generally, like I myself use Jupyter. I'm very comfortable in developing things in Jupyter Notebook, right? So yes, so all the developments, whatever I do it on Jupyter Notebook. But again, you have to get it converted for the model for the deployment purposes, right? So for that, I generally use VS Code. If you've heard of Visual Studio Code, so VS Code I use it to develop it in Python. So for Python IDE, I use VS Code, and then apart from that, the developments are always there in Jupyter Notebook for me.
So I will just pick another couple of questions. Although I would also like to let you all know that the applications for the course that Arpit had enrolled in, the data science and business analytics course, are already open. So if you are keen on learning all the four skills that Arpit spoke about and learning them in a structured manner, so you can go ahead and apply to the program. You can go to greatlearning.in/pgpdspa, and then you can apply for the program from there. You can download the brochure from there. You can apply as well. Uh, we have a question from Prashant. Prashant is asking that he's a business graduate and want to become data scientist. What would be the right path for me to learn? So Prashant, I think we have already discussed this, that there is a certain step 1, 2, 3 that we need to follow, right? And there are certain skills that you need to develop. And those skills can be easily acquired through the PG program in data science and business analytics, the applications for which are open right now. And we'll be starting a batch very soon as well. So just to give you a little more brief about the batches, uh, right now in the online batches, how we do is we build micro cohorts. So basis your experience, basis your background, you are clubbed into a small batch of 10. And then every weekend there would be a mentorship session where you would interact with an industry professional, a senior industry professional, who would help you understand the applications of the data science concepts that you learn, right? So these micro cohorts of 10 people are then taken through the paces of the course. You will learn everything from scratch. You are not expected to be from a programming background. You're not expected to have a technical degree. You can straight away go ahead and enroll in the program, and you'll learn everything from scratch. So at the end of the program, you will be doing a capstone project, just like Arpit did for himself. Arpit worked on IPL dataset. You could work on anything that you would like to work on. It's a month-long project that you will work on, and then finally you will get your PG certificate. So that's the structure of the program. And unlike the session that we are having today, because it's a very large session, we are not allowing microphone access right now. In the micro cohorts that I've spoken just now, you will have full microphone access as well as camera access. So you can see the mentor, you can talk to the mentor. You will also be given a lot of support through our program office. If you have missed any session, you'll get the recording of those sessions, right? So we will help you in every way possible to learn all the basic skills that Arpit just spoke about in machine learning, in Python, in statistics, everything. And at the end of 11 months, you will find that you are very confident And like Arpit shared a story of a gentleman of having 15 years work experience in HR, transitioning to a senior data scientist role, right? So you can script your own success stories like that. There are plenty of success stories that we can share. You can go to our website and check out a few of them. You can go to our blog and read in more detail about them. On our YouTube channel as well, you'll find a couple of videos of our past students. Yeah, so I'll just take another couple of questions and then we can wrap up the session. So we have a question from Bharat. Bharat is asking whether he wants to transition into building robots and drones. So how would AI, machine learning, and data science help in that?
Specifically into robots and drones, right?
Yeah.
That's again, I would say, a particular use case aspect from a data science perspective, right? So you might be, I mean, if you're looking for that particular kind of a role, yes, the number of opportunities will be limited, right? I would not say that again, it's not possible. Again, you have to find out with your own connections if you have some, if you have there, or again, you have to follow right kind of, I would say, job status, and then looking for the right opportunities available. You can definitely do that, but again, my recommendation would again that whenever you are switching your career into data science, right, try to be more receptive in the very beginning. Okay, so try to be more open to different opportunities, because if you start limiting your industry, if you start limiting your kind of problem statements you're trying to solve, that will limit the opportunities itself. Correct. So when you're trying to make a switch in this domain, try to be more open in the very beginning. And if you have number of opportunities, if a number of options, if you have cleared 2 3 interviews, 2 3 companies interview, right? And if you have option ABC, then you can choose something which you like the most, right? But again, don't limit your opportunities even before applying for the jobs. I would never recommend that,
Hmm.
when especially when you're trying to make a switch in this domain, right? So yes, definitely these opportunities will be available, but I would say 1 out of 10, right? So again, and getting into those 1 out of 10 opportunities itself is going to be tricky, because it'll be, apart from you, it'll be like 100 more candidates applying for the same job. Correct. So try to be bit open to other opportunities as well, and then if you have the options, always choose the best which you want to do.
Now we have come to the close of session. I still see a couple of questions from people who are saying that I am from X, Y, and Z profile. So we have a question from Jeff, who works with tourism operations. We have Manish, who is having a PhD in computer science with 18 years of experience in teaching. Both of them asking whether it is possible for them to switch to data science. We just discussed that it is possible, and we discussed one example that Arpit gave, a person working in HR who switched to a senior data scientist role. And I'm sure Arpit can share a lot more examples from his batch. In fact, just to give you a fact, 60% of the people that join the PG program in data science and business analytics that Great Learning offers are not from IIT background. So you working in sectors that are not directly related to programming or IT, that is definitely not a hindrance. The number of years of experience is not a hindrance. What The only thing that is required from your end is the willingness to learn and the willingness to apply those concepts in real life, right? So like Arpit mentioned, you need to build a base of all the concepts, and then you need to become proficient with the platform that is currently trending, which is Python. So if you have the base in Python, if you have the base in machine learning, statistics, and all those theoretical concepts, and then you have skills of applying those things in Python, then regardless of your background, you can make it in the data science field. It might be easy for some, it might require a little bit more effort, but if you are really keen on making that switch, you can do that. So I hope this answers your question. And with this, I would like to wrap up the session. And I would like to thank Arpit for joining us today and sharing his valuable time with us. Thank you, Arpit, for joining us today and shedding light on some important information regarding data science and careers in data science and how to build one.
Totally my pleasure, love. And I always like talking to people. So it's totally my pleasure.
Yeah. And I would also like to thank everyone that has joined us today in this session. If you have any further questions, please do get in touch with our team through the numbers mentioned on our website or the emails mentioned on our website. We would be more than happy to take more questions from you. So, with that said, I would like to bid adieu to all of you. Thank you, Arpit, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.